Okay, members, we're right on time. It's like I said, 7:30. Canadian Maritime Time. That's what that is. If all members will come in the chamber, we'll get through a little bit more business of the house. Mr. Clerk, how about ring the bell so they'll understand we're ready to get started? We have a couple of privilege resolutions we'll take care of at this point in time, then we're going to move on to some further actions. So if y'all will give the clerk your attention. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions?
Recognizing and commending Stephen Binney. Recognizing and commending Jacqueline Eccles, Ph.D. Recognizing and commending the Right Honorable Sir Simon Burns. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? Chair hears none and the resolutions are adopted. Members, the messenger tells me we're not tied to an exact agenda here. So we're going to do something right now. We won't have to do it at the end. So we have two members that will be celebrating their birthdays tomorrow. Representative Joseph Gullett. There he is over the door, Representative Gullett. And the lady from down Columbia County, Augusta way, Representative Jody Lott. Happy birthday, you guys. Okay, members, I want you to give Chairman Powell your attention, if you will. He's going to be recognized for a motion. Chairman Alan Powell is recognized for a motion. Important bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers and ladies and gentlemen of the House. I ask this House to agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 993.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 993 to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 3 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to offenses related to minors generally so as to provide for the offense of grooming a minor for indecent purposes.
Representative Powell is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House. As y'all know, there's a lot of bills that I do over the time, but nothing has been more emotional to me than this bill that we passed a few weeks ago. This was because of an incident that I became knowledgeable about, and that was that sexual predators that prey upon our children, and they'll start grooming these children at a young age for the purposes that they're so dastardly commit. We had a young lady at the age of 10 and a half that a guy started grooming at the YMCA. 16 other actions happened. When she found out that this wasn't true love and that he went on to someone else, then she took her life. took her life. You know, there's a lot of things that I would there's a lot of things that I can say about this type of behavior, and none of them are good. But I would ask this House to agree to the Senate substitute. What the Senate did in the Senate Judiciary Committee, with the cooperation of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, added some language. And the language, basically an interpretation, to say that it's non-defensible for an accused to say that images that they may put on the internet or on some kind of electronic media aren't a real kid. And that's quite frankly the change they made. Tightens this up. The Prosecuting Attorneys Council said this would give them a stronger position to go after these predators. And I would certainly appreciate your consideration for this bill to move it forward. I thank the Speaker for allowing us to bring it out. There's someone I would like to recognize, the Cobb family, the parents of Jennifer Cobb. And I would like for you to look at this poster. This family has started a movement about justice for Jennifer, but it could be a justice for anybody. It could be a justice for your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. And this is picking up steam to make this type of behavior known to those folks. I want you to look at the picture of this beautiful young lady. And then I want you to think about your own children or those you may know. And Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to answer any further questions, but I would certainly appreciate your vote.
Gentlemen, you don't have any questions. Outstanding job. To the Cobb family, thank you for being here. Thank you for your advocacy on behalf of your daughter. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 993, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 993. The yeas are 172, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute. Thank you, members. Representative David Clark is recognized for a motion. Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like the House to agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House. $10.46.
That's the good part. Mr. Clerk, will you read the captions?
House Bill 1046 to be entitled, an act to amend Code Section 16, 1372, Code Section 3162, and Article 7 of Chapter 7 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to sale, distribution, or possession of dangerous drugs.
Representative Clark is recognized to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment. Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1046, the new language coming from the Senate, the substitute, we added to allow physicians, right now they can hire, say, 4 APRNs, 4 PAs, and this will allow them to have the flexible ratio of deciding how best they're going to add them. Say it's 6 PAs and 2 APRNs, and it will help a lot in different offices with the physicians to be able to have that flexible ratio. So that's the addition from the Senate substitute. And then also the House amendment, I've added the Georgia Commission on Maternal and Infant Health, the bill that we passed, all yes votes here in the chamber. And so that is the amendment, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration of House Bill 1046.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? Chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1046 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House of House Bill 1046, the yeas are 169, the nays 1, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute as amended by the House. Chair recognizes Representative Tyler Paul Smith for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move this House agree to the committee conference report on Senate Bill 73, that we adopt that conference committee report.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the conference committee report?
The Committee of Conference on Senate Bill 73 recommends that both the Senate and the House of Representatives recede from their positions and that the attached Committee of Conference substitute to SB 73 be adopted. For the Senate, Anna Navarre of the 31st, Huffstetler of the 52nd, Tillery of the 19th. For the House, Smith of the 18th, Wiedauer of the 121st, Carpenter of the 4th.
Chairman Smith is recognized to explain the Committee of Conference report for Senate Bill 73.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, good evening. I bring to you this conference committee report. There's a lot of hard work went into this. I want to thank the Speaker personally for his leadership and guidance. I'll go through real quick with you. Section 1, this requires that the State Bar of Georgia create rules related to soliciting any media for the provision of legal services. That's all these billboards you see out there on the interstates and byways. These such rules shall prohibit misleading or false representations, disclose the place of business of the law firm, prohibit depiction of a person not employed by the firm as employed by the firm. It would also prohibit depicting a person who is not a client of the firm as a client of the firm, and require that disclosures compromise no more than 10% of a solicitation. Currently, Rule 7.1 of the Georgia Bar prohibits making a false or misleading communication about the lawyer or the lawyer's services. Rule 7.2 requires disclosure of, among other things, identity and physical location of attorney and use of a non-attorney spokesperson, portrayal of a lawyer by a non-lawyer or of a client by a non-client. Currently, OCGA 10-1-427 prohibits advertisements of legal services from using any misleading statements and from falsely portraying individuals as clients. This provision is enforceable by the Attorney General by a cease and desist order, a violation of such order being a misdemeanor. Senate Bill 73 would also entitle any member of the State Bar in good standing or any person who sees or hears a solicitation violating the statute or rules prohibiting false or misleading advertising to bring a cause of action against the soliciting person. Courts may impose a $10,000 civil penalty for each violation and award attorney's fees, expert witness costs, and other costs associated with bringing that cause of action. The owner of the media displaying or publishing the solicitation would not be held accountable under this code section or state bar rule supporting it. I'll point you to Section 2, which would be amending OCGA 46-5-27. This would allow for injunctive relief and civil damages for citizens of Georgia who have elected not to receive telemarketing calls but continue to receive those calls. This bill also removes the requirement that a person or entity that makes a soliciting phone call to a person on the no-call database that complies or disseminates information from the no-call database contrary to law, or that blocks caller identification during a solicitation call, be made knowingly. That is, there is strict liability for these offenses. The pre-existing defense of reasonable practice and procedure to prevent violation is limited to where calls are made by another entity on behalf of the defendant. A defense is added where a defendant is provided the number of a person on the no-call database by another subscriber, and that defendant does not know and has no reason to know that the number provided was on the no-call database. This is also exempt our local telephone providers, wireless services, and voice over internet protocol services from that liability for solicitation calls made using their services. With that, Mr. Speaker, that is the hard work and summary of what we have here in this bill, and I'll yield for any questions if there are any.
You have a question. Representative Jason Ridley, to your right, has a question.
My friend yield.
To my friend from Chatsworth.
On line 28, when it talks about a prohibition against depicting an individual who's not a client, is that saying that they can't use actors on there that say that they won money? It has to be an actual person?
That's my interpretation as well. You see that a lot on TV. I've seen it all growing up. I know you have as well. And so, yes, sir, that is the intent behind this.
All right, and one follow-up question,
Sure.
if you don't mind. When does this take effect?
It would actually take effect, I'll go back and look just to make sure. My understanding is that it would go into effect upon signature of the governor.
All right, thanks so much for the
Yes,
bill.
sir.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
Yes, sir.
Representative Jasmine Clark, to your left, is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
To my friend with the best questions, yes.
So actually, the question I have goes along with what was just asked. Does this even include, is this just visual, or can it also include radio ads and things like that as well?
You know, I think a good practitioner would make that argument that it would include those as well. But this is more for the targeting our billboard services that are out there. But I would say the practitioner could very well say that. You know, I have this saying in our committee that, remember, we're under a common law system. Trying to codify each and everything is not really in keeping with the civil justice or criminal justice systems that we have for that matter. So I think case law, there's a good argument to be made for that as well.
So, gentlemen, for
Sure.
one more question.
Yes.
So there's all these commercials. I don't know if you hear them on your radio station, if you hear them, but they'll say something like, "Oh, I got cash now," or "This lawyer got me $50,000." Are you saying that with this bill, they would not be allowed to air those types of commercials?
Unless it was an actual client, that would be correct.
Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question or two.
I will for one more.
You have two, but I'll let you take one. Representative Casey Carpenter, on your right in the back.
Does
Yield.
the gentleman yield?
To my friend from Dalton, I will.
So I know this is not the bill I was looking forward to voting for today, but and you know my stance on lawsuits, but anytime you can get two lawyers suing each other, I think I can live with it. I appreciate the legislation.
Yes, sir.
Last one.
Yeah, I'll take one more, Mr. Speaker.
To your left, Representative Hilton has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, to my friend.
So I see this on TV. What is the harm to me, the consumer?
You know, I'll use this example. Before my dear Nana left this world, she asked me if she had been in an accident, whether I would use, which firm out of Atlanta I would use. Would I use Montlick? Would I use Morgan & Morgan? And it was interesting. I said, well, Nana, I hope you'd use the firm I was at because we can deliver just as good, if not better result. And so the regular populace, there's advertisements for a reason. And so this is to try to make sure that truth in advertising is accomplished even in the legal profession.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir.
On line 46, it looks like it's a fine of $10,000 per violation. If there's a TV ad or a post of some kind that goes out to several thousand folks, is that several thousand times 10,000?
That's per violation. So, according to the evidence presented, I mean, you could prove multiple violations that message was actually received by someone. With technology today, I know it says 10,000 per violation, but that can add up pretty readily, I would say. And so that could be a huge hit for false advertising there.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you again for your hard work and guidance on this. I thank the members for the great questions. I ask this body's favorable consideration to adopting the Conference Committee report for Senate Bill 73.
Gentlemen, has yielded well. Thank you for the presentation. On the adoption of the Conference Committee report on Senate Bill 73, all in favor of the adoption of the Conference Committee report will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the adoption of the Conference Committee report on Senate Bill 73. The yeas are 167, the nays are 4, and the report on the Committee of Conference report is adopted. Chair now is going to recognize Chair Lady Cooper for a motion. Representative Cooper is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1072.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1072 to be entitled an act to amend Article 10 of Chapter 8 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Drug Repository Program so as to revise definitions.
Chair Lady Cooper is recognized to explain the Senate substitute to House Bill 1072.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if you remember, we passed out in the original House Bill 1072 the bill that helps with our pharmacy that reclaims unused medicines that are going to be destroyed and gives them to needy Georgians across our state. It's sort of a closed-door pharmacy. In essence, is that it's not one where you walk in, it's all mail order, and therefore they needed extra help since they do not get their medicines packaged all neat like a pharmacy would, and it extended several and took care of several things they needed in expansion. This is also would allow hospitals, if they make application to the pharmacy board, or closed-door pharmacies, which would be like in a nursing home, that they should also apply to have 2 more pharmacy techs than they have been allowed so far, and that is the difference in the bills. I ask your favorable consideration on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Ladies yielded the well. On the ladies' motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1072, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the lady's motion, the yeas are 169, the nays are 1, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1072. Chairman Powell is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the House to agree to the amended version of HB 353 as amended by the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 353 to be titled an act to amend Chapter 27 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated the Georgia Lottery for Education Act so as to provide that administrative procedures and actions regarding bona fide coin-operated amusement machines shall be subject to Chapter 13 of Title 50.
Representative Powell is recognized to explain his agreement to the Senate amendment to House Bill 353.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. This House Bill 353 was a co-am cleanup bill that we did a couple of weeks ago. There was no changes made over in the Senate to any of the things that it left all of the procedures, APA and opinion letters and all of that, the 3% tax increase that was going to give about $50 million more dollars to universal pre-K, the gift cards that will stop a lot of the paying out of cash once they're implemented, and these are the reloadable and non-reloadable that do not redeem for cash. The amendment they made was a floor amendment. This is a procedural amendment. If you look on, if you pull the bill and look on line 232, and when I say a procedural amendment, the House only allows one amendment to pass on a floor presentation, and to keep a second amendment that would have killed the bill in its entirety. They did one amendment, and that amendment was to change the date, and that date that you're looking at changes the 50-50 date that would be reported to the lottery. It changed it from July the 20th to October the 1st of 2024. And that's quite frankly all it was, a procedural amendment, and it's the same identical bill that left this House. And I would certainly appreciate your consideration for the lottery, for pre-K and all of those things.
The gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I ask for your favorable consideration. Let's get this thing finished.
Gentleman has yielded the will. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 353, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the yeas are 148, the nays are 18, and the House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 353. Representative Carson is recognized for a motion. Representative Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As noted before, we're still discussing Senate Bill 240. I move the House adhere and appoint a committee of conference on Senate Bill 240.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Senate Bill 240 to be titled an act to amend Title 47 of the official code of Georgia Annex relating to retirement and pension so as to revise the minimum and maximum allowable benefit.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The House has adhered. Chair appoints Representative Carson of the 46th, Representative Irwin of the 32nd, and Representative Dubnik of the 29th as a committee of conference on Senate Bill 240. Okay, members, here's our posture. We are in the process of printing some bills that just came out of rules. So it's going to take us a few minutes to do that. As we prepare to close a little bit later, we're going to go ahead now and do our afternoon nightly orders at this point in time. I'm going to ask you, there are several afternoon orders that are going to be honoring some folks who serve their communities in this state. And I'm going to begin with Representative Hutchinson. Representative Hutchinson is recognized for an afternoon order.
Good evening, colleagues. Unfortunately, I have to rise today to honor 4-year-old Bella Wilson. Today was her funeral. She died a week and a half ago of COVID. She died on a Friday. She made 4 that Tuesday. I know we fought a lot up here about who should wear masks and whether or not children should wear masks to school. I promise you, her parents wish they had that problem. I never wanted to get up here to talk about a 4-year-old who died of COVID, yet here I am. Her funeral is today. I missed it to be here, but she was just at my house. She was just playing with my dog. So please, a few moments for Bella and her family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Thank you, Representative Hutchinson, and prayers for the family. Beautiful little girl. Representative Hong is recognized for an afternoon order. Members, you may want to. Representative Ken Vance, would you come down front, please? Representative Hong, Representative Vance. Members, you may want to stand again, if you don't mind, and give the lady your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Sunday, we lost a really great soul. Zach Johnson was a lobbyist here at the Capitol. I met Zach in 2009 when we were interning together at the state senate, and we dated for several years after that and stayed friends for a long time. It was a very unexpected death. He loved being here, he loved his job, and he would go out of his way to do anything for anybody. He was a great friend, he was a wonderful son. I know his mom and his family, they're watching right now, and he was a great uncle to his nieces and nephews, a great brother to his two older sisters, but most of all, he was a great dad to 3 of his kids who are under the age of 10. So we're really sad, and I know many people here at the Capitol who have been here for a long time remember Zach, and I've heard from a lot of people, and we're going to really miss him a lot. So please keep his family, especially his children, in your thoughts and prayers, and if we can take a moment for him. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Hong, for that remembrance. Prayers for the family and for you as well. Members, we're going to recognize a former member of this House, and I'm going to ask if Representative Buckner and Representative Stinson and Representative DeLoach, Representative Williams, that served with Mr. Ward Edwards.
See Buddy over there? Is he gone?
Representative Stinson, Representative Parsons, Representative Stevens, Representative Dickey, Representative Vance Smith, all friends of a former member of this House, Representative Ward Edwards, Representative Hughley, Representative Buckner.
We rise to mourn the passing of Ward Edwards of Butler, Georgia. He died day before yesterday at the age of 94. He had served in this House. He was first elected in 1966 and served for 26 years. And he loved us so much, he came back to be the doorkeeper. He, during his time serving here, he was a majority whip, caucus secretary. He served on education, governmental affairs. He was the vice chair of interstate cooperation and the secretary of rules. He was also the member of the UGA Gridiron Society. He served on the Georgia Department of Transportation Board. he just loved Georgia politics, and he loved Taylor County. He has a building that is full of all kinds of Georgia political memorabilia, and he is survived by his daughter, a brother, a sister, and a host of nieces and nephews. And a lot of these folks that served with him may want to say a word or two, but he was a friendly, gregarious fellow that, like I say, loved politics, loved Georgia, and loved Taylor County.
See one thing. I'll just say that I have 5 bird houses that he made for me, and they are beautifully decorated, and I will cherish them forever.
Mr. Ward was my constituent in my county commissioner district when I served back in Taylor County, and I served as his state representative. And he was so well loved in the Taylor County community, and he's definitely going to be missed, and we will continue to honor his life and legacy for many years to come in the Taylor County community. So thank you, members of the House.
Let's have a moment of silence. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. I just want to say he was always very nice to us. I was in the minority there for 10 years, and you know, for some people here, it didn't make any difference. They were just always very kind, very gracious. I also mentioned his daughter. I'm looking out here at the photographer. His daughter was the house photographer here for several years, and so when you see some of the old, more grainy photographs that were taken with the old 35 millimeter camera, she took those. And but I remember him, and I think about that building he has with all the old memorabilia down there, and we'll definitely miss him.
If I may, so I did not serve with Mr. Ward here in this body. I was not that fortunate, but I did serve with Mr. Ward on the DOT board. I was a member of before I came here, and he was quite the gentleman, loved this house, loved his community, and loved our state, and loved his family. Thoughts and prayers go out to a great Georgian, Mr. Ward Edwards, and our sympathy to his family. Let's bow for a moment of silence, if you will. Amen. Thank you, members. Chairman Gunther. Chairman Gunther is recognized for an afternoon order. Chairman Stan Gunther.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, on your desk this morning you found this bottle of sorghum syrup. For those of you that are not familiar with sorghum syrup, when you taste this, don't think that it's honey gone bad. It has a little different taste. An old timer up in Blairsville, when I first moved up there and discovered this, he said it was an acquired taste. So it's very good on a hot buttered biscuit. You'll love it. But I just thought you might want to try a little taste of the mountains.
Sorghum syrup. Good stuff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't get one, by the way. Oh, I got one? Oh, excuse me, I got one, Mr. Chairman. He's not paying attention to me. Chairman Chokus, he's going to wave. Representative Gloria Frazier, would you join me for a moment? Representative Williams, Representative Al Williams, I need you at the front. Representative Hughley. I'm going to recognize a good friend and a fellow representative of mine, good friend of mine and a fellow representative of ours, Representative Gloria Frazier. If you'll give the lady your attention, your full attention, I would appreciate it. Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is supposed to be a grand moment right now, but because of all the death that has just preceded me, I don't have that in me right now. The 4-year-old shook my heart. And I thank you, Shelley, for giving her some fun times in that last few hours of her life. But I stand here today to say thank you and to also say goodbye. I have had the opportunity to serve for 18 years in this House, and it has been an honor to represent the people in Richmond, Burke, and Jenkins County for the last 18 years. I've been through 3 appropriation chairs, Chairman Hatchett, Chairman England is right over here behind us, and Chairman Ben Harbin. And I have a special place in my heart for Chairman Butch Parrish, who has always been there when I needed his assistance in helping the ones that are less fortunate than us. I thank God for the opportunity to have served with all of you and many of you that are at home and gone on before. But I came up here with a mission. I came up here with a promise, something that legislators should never do, make promises. We know that. It's hard to keep a promise. But I made a promise to a 32-year-old young man 20 years ago that lived with sickle cell. And I promised him on his deathbed, after he asked me, if you ever, Miss Frazier, get into a position where you can help with this disease, please help us. And he died a few days later, but I promised him on his deathbed that if I ever was in a position to help, that I would. And I have done that. And everybody in this chamber know that when you see me, the only thing you see is SC. Because I made that promise, but I didn't know I would be able to fulfill it. So I like to thank the speaker, at that time was the minority leader, who helped me every year, Speaker Burns, every year to make sure that money was appropriated for sickle cell. I come to the well to educate you about sickle cell for years, to tell you about this inheritable disease that over 14,000 Georgians live with every day. 14,000 Georgians that want to go to work, that want to have a career, that want to have a family. But because of this pre-existing disease, they couldn't live the normal life that we live. So I want to thank you all for helping those 14,000. We are not there where we need to be in our budget, but standing with me today is Representative Al Williams, Representative Carolyn Hughley, who I am asking you to please support as they continue the quest to make sure that sickle cell is fully funded. It's been a ride, but I just want to say thank you, and I'm going to go on now to chapter 3 of my 6-chapter book. I'm not going to say this is the last chapter,
Yes.
but it has been so enjoyable to work with you, and we have passed some good legislation, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and some bad. But we work together collectively to do what's right. And my sickle cell family will always be with me everywhere I go. Shelley, just buried a 4-year-old. I just buried a 12-year-old last week that had sickle cell. Her life ended short. And we have to do better with educating and finding a cure. So on that, I would like to thank all of you for your support during the years. I have completed my promise, and I have served my district. And I'm going to pat myself on the back because I have served my district well. Thank you.
Great, great, great. Ah, good job. Good job.
Representative Frazier, would you join me? Come this side, Gloria. You know, we all have good fortune in life. And I'll just tell you, one of the good fortunes of my life has been to serve with this lady and get to know her. And to get some understanding about a terrible disease. That I'm going to assure you, she has saved lives. She's made a difference because she has been a true champion in this fight combating sickle cell and looking for a cure. I'll also tell you, I've served in a delegation with her. She's pretty tough. Yeah, I gave it to Butch first, then I gave it to you, Jenkins County. So it was a great challenge there. But you've done, I can tell you, she served her constituents in Southeast Georgia as well as anyone could. But what I know most about Gloria Frazier, she cares about people. She cares about her neighbors. And I've just been blessed and am blessed to have known her and to continue knowing her for years to come and being supportive of her work. So, Representative Frazier, Gloria, I appreciate you. Thank you for what you've been doing. Thank you, member. Okay, members. We're going to move on with a couple of motions. For what purpose does Chairman Tyler Paul Smith rise?
To make a motion, Mr. Speaker.
State your motion.
I move that Senate Bill 407 be withdrawn from the Public Safety Committee and recommitted to Judiciary Non-Civil.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Senate Bill 407 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding law enforcement officers and agencies so as require the documenting of certain information in instances of family violence.
On the gentleman's motion, SB 407 be withdrawn from the Public Safety Committee and recommitted to Judiciary Non-Civil Committee. Is there objection? No objection. Hearing none, it is so ordered. Wise man, Mr. Chairman. For what purpose does Representative Petrie rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that we recommit SB 69 to the Rules Committee, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
SB 69 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3, Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to state flag, seal, and other symbols so as to provide for replacement of a monument in honor of the Honorable Clarence Thomas.
On the gentleman's motion, SB 69 be withdrawn from the calendar and recommitted to the Rules Committee. Is there objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered. All right, you ready? We'll move on to the rules calendar again. You have a rule supplemental calendar number 3 on your desk. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 110.
Senate Bill 110 by Senator Walker, the 20th Gooch, the 51st Tillery, the 19th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions for insurance so as to establish the Back the Blue Fund that distributes voluntary contributions made through motor vehicle insurance policies. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Insurance. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Representative Stephen Meeks is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you the substitute House Bill 110. It's got a couple of bills in it. The underlying bill will be House Bill 1235, which is the crane bill that we passed earlier this session that deals with allowing self-propelled cranes to move up and down our highways as they currently do at this time. Section 7 consists of House Bill 907, which also passed this House by the gentleman from the 160th, which has to do with funeral processions. And then House Bill 912, which is in Section 8, the gentleman from the 10th, which refers to multi-purpose off-road vehicles, which we also passed earlier this year as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is what this bill consists of, the substitute, and I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield for questions.
You have a couple of questions. Representative Jasmine Clark, to your left, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell me what LC number you're reading from?
Just a moment. It's LC 394407S. It was just handed out just a few moments ago.
I don't think it's made it to the back of the room yet. Yeah, so I know the speaker is stepped to the side, but there are some of us in the room that have not even seen this bill at all.
Should be on your desk.
They're not done passing them out. We have not received them. I literally just got it as I was standing here. Could we have a moment to review it?
Everyone has the bill on your desk?
No. No.
You don't
the
have it
back-
on your desk?
No, the back of the room does not have the bill. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We'll, if the gentleman will stand down, suspend for a minute. I thought they had already been passed out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
They're getting there. We'll stand at ease for a minute until we get the bills out. I thought they were out. Okay, members, I believe everyone has a copy now. Chairman Meeks is recognized to answer a couple of questions. Did you answer that last question?
Well, Mr.
You have
Speaker,
a couple other questions if you'll yield.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Park Cannon is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the provision around the funeral processions.
Yes, ma'am.
Just have a question. So what's the penalty? Someone doesn't, right now it's kind of a courtesy that we do in the South and in other places where, you see a procession coming and you move out the way. But since we're shalling it, writing it into law, what is the penalty if you don't?
Line 138, any person violating this section shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Yes, ma'am.
Gentlemen, yield for another question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Nulowitz, to your left, is recognized for a question.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So, thank you. My question is actually about the multi-purpose off-road vehicles. Now, are these the like the side-by-side, the Razors, the RZRs, the kind of things that are...
That's correct.
Okay. And then looking at then in section... later on. Excuse me. Let's see. This is after the funeral procession. Right. Well, what I want to make sure is it's when you're talking in Part 8, Section 8, Part 8, so these vehicles still would not be subject to ad valorem taxation, because that's an issue that I've been working on and hearing a lot about in my district, about a lot of these being stolen and then there's no ad valorem, there's no titling. Will this help with that problem that we're having?
I would suggest that it would. These vehicles can now be tagged. Those can be purchased from the local tag offices. So I would suggest that it would assist with that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Speaker, no further questions. I'll yield the will and ask for your favorable consideration for SB 110 LC 394407S.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted on the passage of, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 110, the yeas are 165, the nays are 3. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Okay, members, we're going to take up Senate Bill 395. 395. Should have it on your desk.
Senate Bill 395 by Senator Dixon, the 45th, Watson, and the 11th, Walker, the 20th, Strickland, the 17th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2, Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to student health in elementary and secondary education, so as to authorize possession of opioid antagonists in schools. This bill having referred to the Committee on Education. That committee recommends this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Representative McCullum is recognized to present the bill. Representative McCullum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to amend my amendment this time. I rise today to present SB 395. This is a bill that Senator Dixon brought over from the Senate, and it's named after his cousin that lost his life to fentanyl overdose, and it's named Wesley's Law. It's a combination of 3 bills. We amended the bills and the rules. It was 2 bills, 1035 and 1170, that passed unanimously out of the House. The legislation opioid overdose bill for 395, it essentially is a Narcan counter medication that's administered nasally. No training is required for naloxone. No negative side effects have ever been reported as a result of this use of Narcan. This bill requires schools to supply Narcan in buildings unless the supply of Narcan is made difficult to obtain by the medication. The shelf life of Narcan is 3 years. There's no special storage requirements. Many grants is included, possibly for this opioid medication. what we'll be essentially doing is putting Narcan in schools. All the staff in schools it'll be readily available. They will be immune from liability, as well as the school will be, but they'll have to call EMS as soon as they administer the drug. The other two pieces is also Narcan related bills. One was requested by Emory University, and it applies to colleges. So they'll be allowed to put Narcan in vending machines, and it covers all university campuses. The second part of that is they'll be putting Narcan in government buildings and courthouses that have AEDs. And so the Narcan will be put with the AED, and that'll be in government buildings. That'll exclude universities, but this will cover everything. Fentanyl, I know everybody knows this is a terrible thing that's happening in our state, and luckily this year we've really made some advancements. I request your considerable favorable vote. I yield the well.
You have a couple of questions if you want to answer them, or you can yield the well, whatever your preference is.
I'll yield the well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. Previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee's substitute? The chair hears none. The committee's substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? The chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? For what purpose is Representative Kennard rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, that to date, Narcan has saved 27,000 lives according to the CDC, and I have personally witnessed resuscitate some of my clients back to life. This is literally a life-saving measure. Isn't that true?
That is true, and I know the gentleman knows very much of what he speaks, and thank you for your work in that area, by the way. For what purpose does Representative Terry Cummins rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that 3 students in a high school in my district this last year overdosed on gummies? They were not aware that fentanyl was in those gummies, and if it wasn't for the fact that Narcan was in that school, they wouldn't be here today. So thank you for the bill.
I'm sorry for that experience, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. That's what this bill's all about. For what purpose does Representative Holly rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that blocks away from this Capitol, we fortunately have a gentleman who we were fortunate to honor last year, Marshall Rancifer, who made it his life mission not only to help the homeless, but also to be one of the remaining souls there on site when persons were literally in the throes of having their drug addiction, where he practiced giving Narcan by actually injecting an orange, and thus so was able to save lives before he succumbed himself.
Thank you for making us aware of that, and we thank that individual and certainly are very sorry for his loss. Have all members now voted? If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 395? The yeas are 171, the nays 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 502, 502.
Senate Bill 502 by Senator Dixon, the 45th, Hatcher to the 50th, Albers the 56th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 3, Chapter 5 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the general authority, duties, and procedures of the Department of Administrative Services. This bill having referred to the Committee on Regulated Industries, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Chairman Saines is recognized to present the bill. Chairman Saines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the hour is late, so I'll be quick. Senate Bill 502 accomplishes several things. One of the main items is ensuring that the state of Georgia doesn't bind itself with how it markets to Georgia citizens. We're making sure that there is no preempted list of vendors or outlets that the state of Georgia's tax dollars utilizes in marketing through any of its agencies, as well as looking at the purchase of land through foreign adversaries, which you can find on lines 26 through 33. Sorry, the purchase of equipment through foreign adversaries, which is on line 27. I'm confusing good policy here. And as well as several provisions added on. One for the community service boards to ensure that they're allowed to meet virtually, and one that might be spoken to through a parliamentary inquiry on natural gas. If there's no questions, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well.
You have a couple of questions, if the gentleman will yield.
I'll yield for two.
Whip Park, right to your left, recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Saines, on lines 69 to 70, this bill defines media reliability and bias monitor, which this bill is now prohibiting any state agency from entering into. What is media reliability bias monitor? Can you give me an example? And again, why are we prohibiting this in Georgia?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Whip Park. Like many bad things, it has a nice title, and basically what the effect is that we are binding the state, if utilizing this kind of monitor, to not directly look at where we're putting our media, but letting a third-party global list decide that a outlet is either useful or unuseful to reaching Georgia citizens. A good example of this that I like to look at is our DBHDD's current look at reaching rural Americans and for suicide prevention as a target group. We know that specific sectors need specific outlets to be most effective at reaching that target group, and I think this just ensures that our agencies aren't binded by a predetermined list to reach our consumers on important issues like suicide prevention and economic development.
Do you yield for one more question?
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, because the bill defines these organizations as ones that, again, rank to assess the factual accuracy of content and news, to address misinformation, bias, adherence to journalistic standards and ethics. Again, I'm having a hard time understanding why we were prohibiting all state agencies from, entering into a contract with, or even, using some of the information that could help eliminate some of the misinformation and disinformation that's out there.
We're in no way prohibiting the vetting of outlets in our marketing dollars, but what we're doing is not allowing that to be outsourced. We're trusting our state agencies and our public servants to understand where's the right place to put our public dollars when we're utilizing that for advertisement and not utilizing a predetermined list that is developed, I believe, not even domestically, but internationally.
Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
One more, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Perkle, to your right, is recognized for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do, to my friend.
Is it not true that sections 4, 5, and 6 are a direct recommendation of the House Rural Development Council?
They are.
Is it also not true, if you don't mind me asking, that this will allow some of our rural areas, some of the most economic distressed parts of the state, to have, as Speaker Ralston would say, the bright light of economic prosperity to help shine upon them?
I appreciate that. And
Thank
speaking
you
of
so
light,
much.
I think the natural lack of light coming from the windows over here say that the hour is late, and I'll yield the well from keeping us from being here further. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee's substitute? The chair hears none. The committee's substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 502, the yeas are 103, the nays are 64. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 307.
Senate Bill 307 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Watson of the 1st, Walker of the 20th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 46 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to certification of private review agents so as to provide for health insurers to implement and maintain a program. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Insurance. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Representative Hawkins is recognized to present the bill. Chairman Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The underlining portion of this bill actually deals with reduction of prior approvals. This is when the insurance company requires your physician or dentist to actually have to submit paperwork so you can have the treatment done. So this reduces it by performance standards in evidence-based medicine. This was Senate Bill 307, and it passed the Senate 50-1. Section 2 is actually House Bill 924, which passed the House 160-1. It deals with drugs that are administered by infusion centers, hospitals, and physicians' offices, and provides access to life-saving drugs. It calls for prevents reduction in payment by the insurers. The third section of the bill is one I particularly like. That was House Bill 945. That deals with the hospitals and being in network for state health benefit. What it does is just aligns the calendar date with the state date rather than the contract date of the hospital and the insurer. If there are no questions, I will yield the will and ask for your favorable consideration.
The gentleman has no questions. He's yielded the will. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 307, the yeas are 167, the nay is 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 429?
Senate Bill 429 by Senators Dolezal of the 27th, Gooch the 51st, Kennedy the 18th, and others to be entitled an act to amend titles 28, 31, 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to General Assembly, health, and state government, respectively, so as to provide for procedures and processes concerning the enactment of legislation and the adoption of rules and regulations. This bill having referred to the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Affairs Oversight, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Chairman Todd Jones is recognized to present the bill. Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I bring to you the Small Business Protection Act of 2024. Because of the rules substitute, I want to skip part 2 and go right to part 3, which was the original part of the bill. Then I'll come back to part 2 for you. Effectively, what part 3 does, which is the Small Business Protection Act, it redefines small businesses as 300 employees and less, and then it also calls for a series of different reports that can be provided to you by the Office of Planning and Budget and the Department of Audits and Accounts, effectively giving you timing either before session for you to request these reports in terms of what the implications will be on small business, and then during session it also gives you the timing in terms of when those reports can be provided to you. Those reports being obviously important so that we can understand what a true driver within Georgia is, which of course is our small businesses, and that's what part 3 does. Part 2 is the Wrongful Conviction Compensation Act. I want to specifically call out a couple of our colleagues, Representatives Holcomb, Houston, Dempsey, Evans, and Buckner. I want to thank them for all of the work that they have done on this, and it's a privilege for me to be able to carry this on their behalf. But effectively, what Part 2 does is the Wrongful Conviction Compensation Act. It provides a series of different processes, and it also provides for a panel to be created, which will be a 5-member panel. The governor, the lieutenant governor, and then also the speaker will be appointing each of those 5 members, and you'll see that on lines 81 through 88. It also goes through the eligibility requirements in terms of what the plaintiff, or in this case the claimant, would have to do in terms of being eligible for that wrongful conviction, I'll say claim. And then it also gives an amount between $60,000 and $120,000 per year, which can be prorated and is effectively affected up or basically put to the CPI on an annual basis. And then it also provides for all the procedures and all the timing. I know that the hour is late, and that is effectively a summary of Senate Bill 429. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for any questions.
Gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. We do have a speaker on the bill. One of the members who wishes to speak, Representative Scott Holcomb, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Really, I wanted to just say thank you to a few folks. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you. I want to thank the majority leader, the minority leader, Chair Lady Dempsey, Chair Lady Houston, Representative Evans, Representative Buckner. They've all been working really, really hard to try to help individuals who were wrongfully convicted. I mean, you can only imagine having your life stolen from you and being prosecuted for something that you did not do, and then losing decades of your life. Decades of your life. The resolutions that the House passed last year were tabled in a Senate committee. This year, there wasn't even a hearing. There wasn't even a hearing. I'm offended by injustice, and that really bothers me. So what this does is it does not solve that problem, but it keeps hope alive in terms of a wrongful compensation panel potentially being set up should this pass the Senate, should the governor sign it, that then these people who probably lacked hope for decades, maybe, just maybe, we might do something to help make it right by having a compensation panel. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Representative Holcomb, thank you for your work on this. All we can do is try. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee's substitute? The chair hears none. The committee's substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 429, the yeas are 161, the nays are 7. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. House will come to order. House will come to order. Chair Lady Dempsey is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 228 as amended by the House.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 228 by Representative Dempsey, the 13th, Cooper, the 45th, Taylor, the 173rd, being titled an act to amend Code Section 23411 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to definitions regarding tuition equalization grants at private colleges and universities. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Dempsey is recognized to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment. Representative Dempsey, give the lady in the wheel your attention, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As some of you may know, this is an issue that I've been working on for the past several years, specifically focusing on the General Assembly's desire to address the healthcare workforce shortage in Georgia, which includes having enough quality nurses. To expand the pool of quality nurses, one crucial element is to provide financial assistance and remove limitations. The original version of HB 228 did this through a very narrow and targeted amendment to the Georgia Tuition Equalization Grant Program, specifically amending this code section to provide that in addition to all the current private colleges and universities that are eligible for TEG, private college and universities with high-performing nursing programs would also be eligible. This passed our House overwhelmingly with bipartisan support last year and came back to us with a Senate substitute. So what this House amendment does is delete the language added by the Senate in its entirety in Section 2 and 5. In fact, the language in Section 5 was passed through this House already on a separate bill from Representative Bonner, so it is no longer needed. The amendment would also add language to the existing Section 4, which tightens up the original language of the bill in lines 70 to 86 to clearly restrict the funding for this section to TEG only. Mr. Speaker, that is what it will do. If there are any questions, I will be glad to take them.
Lady has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well and ask for your favorable support to help increase nursing capacity in our state.
Ladies yielded the well. Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 228 as amended by this House, all those in favor will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the lady's motion, the yeas are 159, the nays are 8, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 228 as amended by this House. Everyone have a copy of HB 206, which has the distinction of being the last bill of the day. If y'all knew how ready I was, or I am, Representative Saines is recognized for a motion.
Make a motion to agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 206.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 206 to be titled an act to amend Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to local government so as to provide for the creation of commercial property assessed conservation, energy, and resiliency development authorities in certain counties and municipalities.
Chairman Saines is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And for members looking at their desk, it's House Bill 206, SCSFA. This bill simply opens a tool already available through our state statute. Unfortunately, in the method it's available, it's only done through downtown development authorities, and only 2 areas in our state, Metro Atlanta and Macon, have DDAs big enough to allow this private enterprise tool to be utilized for economic development projects within their communities. We want to make sure that we add parity throughout the state for this product. It creates the ability for economic development authorities, if they so choose to, if their counties so agree to provide CPACE, commercial property assessed conservation, energy, and resiliency financing, which utilizes the property tax method to bring to market complete private dollars at a lower interest rate to developers in our community that are looking to create projects above code. That could be energy efficiency, or in areas like our coastal communities, it can be hurricane resiliency. I know it's a long bill. It is a useful product. The main thing that changed in the Senate substitute is that instead of creating new CPACE authorities, we're simply allowing this tool to be utilized within our economic development authorities. If all local municipalities involved, the tax commissioner as well, agree to it. With that, Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
Gentleman has one question to your left, Representative Mary Frances Williams.
Will the gentleman yield?
I do.
So could you please explain to me how this expands the authority that development authorities currently have?
Sure. So currently, this is not a tool that's within their code section. It's within the Downtown Development Authority code section. So it simply allows, if each given authority would like to utilize this tool, if a private developer comes to them and says we have a project that fits within the scope of CPACE, that board would have to approve its utilization, and all local governments that are affected by it would also have to approve that through an intergovernmental agreement.
So will the gentleman further yield?
I do.
So first of all, could you tell me what CPACE is?
Sure. As mentioned previously, it stands for Commercial Property Assessed Conservation, Energy, and Resiliency Financing. It's meant to basically anything above code would be applicable. It can only be utilized for 20% of the project. And for our banking friends, we worked with them to ensure that it doesn't modify or implicate their financing. A developer, if they're financing through traditional means, they would have to get a pre-approval through their bank to allow for this financing to be utilized.
So will you further yield? I'm still not clear. So development authorities currently have the ability to raise funds for projects, and this expands this. I mean, I know you're saying that they have to have certain conditions met, but exactly what does it allow them to do that they cannot do right now?
Sure. So it allows them to package the CPACE program. So the CPACE program uses the property tax structure to put in the private capital at a lower interest rate, because that private capital provider is being secured through our property tax structure. So they're offering it at sometimes 1/3 of the interest rate to that developer, and it's allowing them to be the conduit of that packaging, which is required to be put into their code section.
And just one further question.
Yes.
So
Right.
does this do anything in terms of the tax burden on the local municipality?
I appreciate that. There is no tax burden to any taxpayer, state or local. I'd see it as a economic development tool that costs a Georgia taxpayer $0, because any even administrative cost incurred can be reimbursed through the package of the deal, which is within this bill. With that, Mr.
Gentleman,
Speaker, I yield.
there's a gentleman knows a little bit about economic development, has a question. Chairman Stevens to your left has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you yield?
I do.
Isn't it true that the taxpayers will not be at risk since these are not general obligation bonds, these are revenue bonds?
They are, and I appreciate the question. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 206, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? For what purpose does Representative Reeves rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that this type of legislation is being used in Florida and around 3 dozen other states to have renovations and redevelopment, which is very efficient, and that there are properties in Gwinnett County where 21 House members represent that are ready to use this to redevelop properties?
Sure, the gentleman knows of what he speaks. For what purpose does Representative Taylor rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that this is a great tool for protecting our environment and using a new means for financing, and it does not include any tax from local or state tax funds?
Sure, the lady knows of what she speaks and believes that to be so. For what purpose does Representative Williams' son rise? Bruce Williamson.
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not further true, Mr. Speaker, that this comes only when a participating lender approves of the arrangement? So it has to come with a participating lender's approval, and the Georgia Bankers Association and credit unions are okay with this bill. Is that not true?
I'm sure the gentleman knows of what he speaks. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion that we agree to the Senate substitute on House Bill 206, the yeas are 72 and the nays are 91, and the bill has been disagreed to. This House has disagreed to the Senate substitute to House 206. For what purpose does Representative Sains rise?
To make a motion,
State your motion.
I move that the House reconsider its position on 206, House Bill 206.
Now's the time for the gentleman to pursue the motion if he or she so desires. So the gentleman moves to reconsider. On the gentleman's motion, the House reconsider its action in failing to agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 206. All those in favor of the reconsideration will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, this House reconsider its actions on reconsider Senate Bill 206. The yeas are 100, the nays are 63. The motion carries and the House has reconsidered its action. The bill will be eligible to be taken up the next legislative day. Okay, members of the House, we've considered our last bill and our last action on day 39. Now we have a few bills we didn't get to, so the following bills and resolution will be postponed to the next legislative day. Senate Bill 543, Senate Bill 198, Senate Bill 208, Senate Bill 351, and Senate Resolution 189 will be postponed to the next legislative day. We don't have any announcements. We've recognized our birthdays for tomorrow. I want to thank this House and you members for paying attention to some very important actions we took today. Thank you. I hope you have a good evening. We be aware that you have committee meetings tomorrow if they've been called, so pay attention to your committee meetings. I'm going to recognize the Majority Leader of this House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, March 28, 2024, the 40th legislative day.
On the motion of the Majority Leader, this House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, March 28, 2024, the 40th legislative day. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. All right, let's stay a little longer. The ayes clearly have it. We are adjourned.